In Hollow Creek, there was an old custom. If you turned 30 and still were not married, the community chair would arrange for you to come home and meet potential matches. When I told Marcus about it, he laughed coldly. What kind of backwoods tradition is that supposed to be? Constance, I said I would marry you and I will. But pressuring me is something else. Then he took out the ring and casually handed it to Hannah. She accepted it with a blush. I was going to propose, he said. But since you want to act like this, maybe we should cool off for a while. The ring I had waited years for was handed to someone else like it meant nothing. For a moment, I just stood there, stunned. Marcus walked out of my office with an easy confidence, the corner of his mouth lifted in a victorious smile. Hannah held the ring out to me. I did not take it.
Keep it, I said.
Wasn't it meant for you anyway? You wear it. It suits you. Her face went pale. I showed her to the door. Before closing it, I said, "Tell Mr. Vale that he and I are done." By the time Marcus Vale came home from work that night, I had already packed 2 large suitcases. He stopped short when he saw them. "Why did you come home without waiting for me?" There it was again. He had a way of turning the page all by himself, as if nothing had happened, and then expecting me to step down from whatever anger I had and keep playing the role of the loving girlfriend. But I did not want to play along anymore. "Didn't your little assistant pass along my message?" His brow tightened at once, as if I had touched a nerve. "I'm trying to talk to you properly. Do you have to be sarcastic? Hannah is from your hometown. You're the one who asked me to bring her into the company. Why are you acting like this now?" He was not wrong. Hannah Price was from the same mountain community as me. The community chair back home had always told those of us who left for the city to look out for one another. So when she graduated and could not find work, I brought her into our company. At first, she was sweet and obedient, and I was happy to mentor her. Then I began noticing the way she looked at Marcus. I knew that look well. Back in school, Marcus had been the kind of man girls stared at from across hallways. I had seen countless women look at him that way. But Marcus had never looked back. So I treated Hannah's crush as a young woman's passing fantasy and did not make a fuss. Then her mistakes at work became more frequent. Once, after I corrected her in passing, she did not argue. She simply stood there crying while I spoke. Marcus could not take it. For the first time, he yelled at me in front of the whole company. "She's just a young girl. Say a few words and let it go. Why are you acting like some big executive in front of a girl from your hometown?" I laughed in anger and refused to back down. "Do you know how many messes the rest of the company has cleaned up because of her?" He waved his hand like it did not matter.
Fine.
"Then Hannah can be my private assistant." He looked around at everyone watching. "From now on, if anyone has a problem with her, come directly to me. Don't gossip behind her back. If you can work, work. If you can't, get out." He walked ahead as if he had won a battle. Hannah followed behind him, and even her back seemed to glow with worship. Now Marcus stood over me again. Somewhere along the way, he had stopped judging things by right and wrong. With me, everything had become a contest. He was no longer the man who once said to me in a tiny rented apartment, "You're the only person I'll ever be willing to lose to." I glanced at my phone. My flight confirmation was still open on the screen. I was going home soon. I no longer had the energy to argue. "You're right. I was being dramatic. It won't happen again." For a moment, his expression turned blank. I supposed he had prepared himself for me to demand when he planned to marry me, to ask why he and Hannah were so unclear with each other. He had not expected me to admit defeat so calmly. After a few seconds, he threw out, "Suit yourself," and left. He did not come home that night. The next morning, I went to work as usual. I could let Marcus go, but Joya Era was the company I had poured all my effort into. Even if I left, I still had to arrange what came next. Besides, I would still receive stable dividends every year. I was considering who I could promote to the front line so I could guide things remotely when Riley Brooks, the sales manager, appeared at the elevator with a terrible expression. She was one of the company's earliest employees and had followed me through countless pitches and projects. I had never seen her look so defeated. "Ms. Rivers, last night we sent Mr. Vale the quote for review. Ms. Price said he was asleep and that she would handle it. But she accidentally sent the client our bottom line cost sheet along with the quote. Now the client is demanding a 20% discount, and our gross margin is only 30%. This is a project we followed for more than 6 months. If we keep going, we lose money. If we walk away, we may lose the client completely." I nodded as I pushed open Marcus's office door. Hannah was lying sideways on the office sofa bed, while Marcus sat beside her, feeding her water by the spoonful. That sofa bed had been bought years ago, when we first started the company, because Marcus wanted to force me to rest. He had said, "My office is your private lounge." Even after the company grew, moved, and built out its own headquarters, I brought that sofa bed along. Now another woman lay on it, and he guarded her with a tenderness that used to belong to me. My chest tightened for a second. Strangely, it no longer hurt. When Hannah saw me, she immediately sat up. Constance, don't misunderstand. I fainted because I felt so guilty, so Marcus was only giving me sugar water. I still remembered the first time she met Marcus. Back then, she treated him as my future husband. At some point, that had changed. I ignored her and slapped the report onto Marcus's desk. At the client's current price, we lose $1.2 million if we take this project. I glanced at them both. So, which one of you is covering the loss? Hannah's eyes reddened instantly. It's all my fault. I should have woken Marcus. I just felt sorry for him because he was so tired. I'll go talk to Mr. Carter. I'll beg him. Marcus frowned down at the documents and did not stop her. Riley and I stood there without moving. Hannah was stuck in her own performance, with no one willing to cue the next scene. I folded my arms and looked at her. Hannah, business does not work because you cry or beg. She lifted the cashmere blanket and took 2 steps before collapsing to the floor. The performance was so clumsy that I felt dumber for witnessing it. But Marcus, the celebrated business genius, believed it. He helped Hannah up and carefully settled her back on the sofa. Constance, you're always so aggressive. Does the whole world have to revolve around you? I tapped the desk. Don't waste my time with things unrelated to the project. $1.2 million. What are you going to do? His eyes reddened. If taking it means losing money, then we don't take it. I laughed coldly. Do you remember how much we drank and how many nights we stayed up to win this client? And this is not our only project with them. If we give them up, how many more 1.2 million losses will follow? Marcus Vale, did a dog eat your brain? He shot me an impatient look and muttered, so petty. Then he pulled out a bank card and threw it at my face. It's only 1.2 million. I'll pay for her. Happy. My cheek burned, but I was eerily calm. The poor boy who once thought $12 burger was expensive could now toss out 1.2 million without blinking. He had forgotten how many people's livelihoods depended on the decisions in his hand. Or maybe he knew and simply did not care. If 1.2 million did not matter, what about 100 times that? I wanted to see whether he would still be so careless then. I asked my best friend, Olivia Hart, to meet me for afternoon tea. She was still cursing Marcus when I received a message from Riley. Ms. Rivers, please come back to the office.
Now.
When I reached my office, Hannah was directing people to move out my desk. Contracts, files, and project materials were scattered across the floor. All of it was built piece by piece with my own hands. Who gave her the right? Put everything down. I crossed the room in 3 strides and slapped Hannah across the face. Who allowed you to touch my things? Hannah held her cheek, but her eyes were stubborn. Marcus said you lost a major deal, so you no longer deserve this office. He said you should work in a cubicle in the common area. Maybe someone had already told him, because Marcus arrived moments later. His eyes flickered when he saw the mess. Hannah, I told you to notify her. Who told you to move her things? Hannah lowered her hand, revealing the red mark on her face, and looked at him pitifully. His heart softened at once. Constance, I made the decision. If you want to vent, vent at me. But rules are rules. Hannah sent the cost sheet, yes, but your team submitted the file. You bear direct responsibility. He sighed and placed both hands on my shoulders. I saw that you bought a plane ticket, but I don't have time to go home with you. Take this chance to go back for a few days, all right? I shook off his hands. Who said I wanted you to go with me? I'm going home because... He sneered. Because you're going home to be matched with someone and get married? Stop threatening me with that. Hannah already told me your village doesn't have any rule that women must go home and marry at 30. Hannah said, Constance, don't blame me for telling Marcus. I just couldn't bear to see him deceived. I looked her over calmly. Designer suit, Chanel earrings, Louis Vuitton bag. None of it matched her salary. And it was worlds away from the girl I first knew. Back then, she had been grateful because I paid part of her tuition. Her first decent college outfit was bought by me. I took her to open her first bank account. I took her to her first buffet. She once said she would repay me when she succeeded. Now she leaned against my boyfriend, wearing things my boyfriend bought, while saying she pitied him for being deceived by me. I no longer cared to preserve anyone's dignity. From my bag, I pulled out a stack of printed pages. In front of the entire office, I began reading aloud. 3 months ago, my boyfriend took you to a hotel. Room fees and protection totaled $5,800. 2 months ago, he bought you a limited edition bag worth $10,200. 1 week ago, He bought you a ring worth $126,000. I flipped the pages. Every item has photos and receipts. So tell me, who exactly is deceiving whom? Whispers spread through the office. Some people looked at Hannah with open contempt. Marcus's face shifted between white and red. I told the staff to put everything back. Even when Marcus tried to stop them, no one listened. Riley even said with a pointed smile, "Ms. Rivers, I'll disinfect the room for you. It reeks of mistress in here." The disinfectant spray landed on Marcus and Hannah. In the end, Marcus could only snap, "Fine. Fine, all of you," before leaving with Hannah. Once the office was restored and I had barely sat down, the community chair back home called me. "Willow, are you sure you're coming back? If you are, I'll ask Owen Cole to pick you up at the station." A smile I had not felt in a long time came over me. I already bought my flight.
But don't tell Grandma yet.
I want to surprise her. The community chair's voice brightened as he agreed again and again before hanging up. There was no real rule in our village that unmarried 30-year-olds had to go home and marry. But my grandmother was 80. She could not wait forever. After Marcus and I finally tore away the mask, he and Hannah became even more shameless at work. It was as if they no longer had to hide from me. Or maybe they wanted to provoke me. They went everywhere together. Whenever Marcus attended an event, Hannah appeared beside him as his female companion. She even started acting like the lady of the company, ordering people around and waiting for me to leave so she could take my place. Riley complained about them several times. I patted her shoulder. "Hold steady. Let her get arrogant." After Hannah's fifth attempt to provoke me failed to get a reaction, she finally could not keep pretending. She stormed into my office without knocking. "Marcus doesn't want you anymore. Why are you still clinging to this place?" I casually straightened the newest designer blazer on her shoulder. "Men are simple. Their money goes where their love goes. Don't tell me you forgot. I own 49% of this company. What do you have? Want to bet? If he is willing to give you 10% of the company, I'll give up my shares and leave. If he refuses, you leave. Dare?" Her face went pale, but in the end, she nodded.
Fine. Bet.
Don't regret it. A few days later, Hannah brought Marcus into my office. She slammed a share transfer agreement on my desk. When I saw the clause transferring 15% to her, I laughed. "Constance, stop pretending you're calm. Pack up and get out." Marcus looked at me unnaturally. "Constance, don't blame me for helping her. It's just a bet. Think of it as a consolation prize for a young girl." Then his tone shifted. "But business people value credibility. Even a private bet must be honored. Don't worry. Even if you give up your equity, I'll still marry you. You can be Mrs. Vale. Your monthly allowance will only go up, not down. As for Hannah, I won't let her appear in front of you again or challenge your position." After all these years, he had not learned much, but he had somehow learned to dream of having both. "Marcus, what a beautiful calculation. You expect me to give up dividends and go home to become a woman who asks you for spending money? I don't want it." Hannah produced a recording of me clearly saying I would honor the bet and give up my equity. Then she handed me a voluntary equity waiver. Riley's eyes reddened, and she rushed forward to snatch it. I stopped her. Then I picked up the pen and signed. Hannah's face flushed with excitement. A complicated emotion flashed through Marcus's eyes, but it was quickly replaced by triumph. I set down the pen. "Enough." Marcus nodded and announced to everyone, "From now on, Hannah is my partner. She will replace Constance's position." Some employees looked frightened. Others immediately began flattering Hannah. "We'll follow Ms. Price's instructions from now on. What are you waiting for? Move Ms. Rivers's things out and make room for Ms. Price." The thermos Marcus once bought me was knocked to the ground and dented. The blanket I knitted myself fell and was stepped on. Even the orchid I had raised for years had a branch snapped off. I did not stop them. I did not get angry. I only remembered the day we moved into this office and Marcus spun me around in his arms. "Constance, we did it. This is our business empire." My vision blurred for a second, then cleared. I quietly watched the place I had fought for over the years be emptied piece by piece. Only when the sign on my office door changed to Ms. Price's office did I turn around. I walked straight into Marcus's office and sat in his chair. "Marcus," I said, "you are now dismissed." Marcus and Hannah had followed me into the office, their footsteps echoing on the hardwood floor. Both of them looked as if they had just heard the funniest joke in the world. Hannah shook the 2 equity agreements in her hand, a triumphant, ugly smirk stretching across her face. One was the 15% transfer that now belonged to her. The other was my voluntary waiver of my own shares. She held them like trophies, her knuckles white with a desperate sort of greed. Marcus looked down at me, a hint of patronizing pity flickering in his eyes. Constance, if you're going to lose your mind, at least know when to stop.
Do.
You really want this getting around? How are you supposed to hold on to your place as Mrs. Vale after this? There it was, the absolute pinnacle of his arrogance. The moment I signed over the shares in my name, he could not wait to put on the airs of Mr. Vale. In his mind, I had stripped myself of my only armor.
He
Honestly believed that from now on, I could only crawl at his feet like some ornamental wife, a dependent accessory whose survival relied entirely on his benevolence. But I, Constance Rivers, had never been anyone's accessory. My grandmother found me on a freezing autumn morning when I was just an abandoned baby, wrapped in a thin, damp blanket on the stone steps of the Hollow Creek Village Clinic. We had nothing. By the time I was 6, I was already standing on a wooden crate to reach our rusted stove, helping her cook whatever wild greens we could forage. By 10, I was waking up at 4 in the morning to pick wild mushrooms in the damp mountain air, selling them by the dirt road to buy my own school books. I had survived the cold, the hunger, and the biting dirt of the mountains. I had fought my way to the city, clawed my way through university, and built Joya Era. From a drafty, single-room rental into a multi-million-dollar marketing firm. Did he truly think a man's shallow affection was the most valuable thing I owned? I don't need to hold on to a place that was never yours to give, Marcus. I said, my voice eerily calm. Before Marcus could snap back, the heavy glass doors of the executive suite were pushed open with a sharp, echoing force. I think you're the one who should learn how to act like a man. A sharp, venomous voice cut through the room. Olivia Hart strode in, her designer heels clicking like metronome ticks against the polished marble floor. Behind her walked 4 tall men in tailored black suits, bodyguards from her family's private security firm. Olivia stopped, slid her sunglasses down the bridge of her nose, and looked at Marcus with utter
disgust.
Marcus's face darkened instantly. Olivia? What is this? For Constance's sake, leave now. Otherwise, I'll call security and have you reported for bringing a group here to cause trouble. Olivia laughed, a bright, mocking sound that made Hannah flinch. Call security, Marcus. Go ahead, Olivia said, crossing her arms. Let's see whose salary they're paid with. She reached behind her, and one of the bodyguards immediately placed a thick, leather-bound folder into her hand. She stepped forward and slammed it directly onto the mahogany desk. Open your eyes, Olivia smirked, her eyes flashing with a cold triumph. I now hold 64% of Joya Era. I am the largest shareholder. Even if I cannot personally erase your pathetic existence from the face of the earth, I can strip you of every ounce of management power. You and your bargain bin mistress are both fired. The room fell into a suffocating, dead silence. Hannah's smug grin froze, her face draining of color until she looked like a cheap plaster doll. Marcus stared at the folder on the desk as if it were a venomous snake. What? What are you talking about? Marcus stammered, his confident posture collapsing. Constance owned 49%. I own 36%.
The
remaining 15% belongs to the early angel investors. Even if you somehow bought them out, you only have 15%. Oh, Marcus, Olivia sighed, shaking her head with theatrical pity. You really should have paid more attention during our early financing rounds. Do you remember the clause Constance insisted on putting in our shareholder agreement? The one regarding the first right of refusal and conditional treasury buyback. Marcus's brow furrowed, a bead of sweat forming near his temple. I leaned back in the chair, crossing my legs. I'll explain it to him, Olivia. He was always terrible with the fine print. I looked at the man I had loved for nearly a decade, realizing how incredibly small he actually was. The voluntary waiver I just signed wasn't a transfer of my shares to you or Hannah, Marcus, I said softly. It was a formal relinquishment of my equity, back to the company's treasury, triggered by a hostile management dispute. Under our original corporate charter, any treasury relinquished shares must immediately be offered to the remaining active shareholders at a predetermined book value. Olivia smiled, tapping the folder. And since I quietly bought out the early angel investors 15% last month, I was the only other active, independent shareholder left on the board besides you. The moment Constance signed that waiver, her 49% was automatically routed to my acquisition holding company. 49 plus 15 makes 64. I am now the absolute majority owner of Joya Era. No, that's impossible. Hannah shrieked, her voice cracking. Marcus, she's lying. I have the 15% transfer paper. You signed it. You have 15% of Marcus's personal shares, you idiot, Olivia snapped, turning her freezing gaze onto Hannah. Which means Marcus now only holds 21%. You two can bicker over your minor, useless stakes in the hallway. But as of 10 minutes ago, a resolution was passed by the majority
Board.
Marcus Vale is removed as CEO. Hannah Price is terminated for gross negligence and breach of fiduciary duty. Marcus trembled, his hands clenching into fists. You can't do this. I built this company. My name is on the door. And your name is also on these, Olivia countered, opening the folder to reveal a stack of financial statements, hotel receipts, and corporate credit card
Bills.
3 months of hotel rooms. $126,000 for a diamond ring. Tens of thousands of dollars in designer bags and jewelry, all billed to client entertainment and market research. Olivia read aloud, her voice cold and level. That is corporate embezzlement, Marcus. It's a federal
Crime.
if you try to fight your termination, or if you don't sign a quiet exit agreement surrendering your remaining 21% to the company as restitution, I will hand this file directly to the district attorney. Hannah dropped the papers she was holding. They fluttered to the floor, landing in the dirt near her designer shoes. She grabbed Marcus's arm, her voice shaking with terror. Marcus, do something. Tell them they can't do this. But Marcus didn't look at her.
He couldn't.
He stared at me, his eyes wide, bloodshot, and filled with a sudden, horrifying realization. Constance, he whispered, his voice cracking. You planned this. You set me up. I didn't set you up, Marcus, I said, standing up and smoothing down my skirt. I gave you countless chances. I gave you my youth, my hard work, and my heart. But you chose to turn our relationship into a battleground. You wanted to prove you could win against me. You wanted to see me break. I walked toward the door, not glancing back at either of them. Congratulations, I said quietly. You won. Now enjoy your prize. The news of the corporate restructuring swept through Joya Era like wildfire. While Marcus and Hannah were locked in a conference room with Olivia's legal team, signing away the remainder of their dignity to avoid prison, I quietly packed the few personal items I had left in my old office. Riley Brooks stood by my door, her eyes red and puffy from crying. MS. Rivers, what am I supposed to do without you? She whispered, clutching a stack of client folders. The sales department, we only stayed because of you. If you leave, the clients will leave too. I walked over and wrapped my arms around her in a tight hug. Don't worry, Riley. Olivia is going to take care of you. I've already spoken to her. Your position is secure, and your salary is being increased by 20%. And I pulled back, smiling gently. I know about your mother's medical bills. I've set up a private trust under your name. The hospital expenses are fully covered. Riley choked up, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. Ms. Rivers, I don't know how to thank you. You've secretly helped me so many times. Just keep doing good work. I patted her back. And visit me when you have
Time.
My hometown is beautiful. I stepped out of the office building into the crisp evening air, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders that I hadn't realized I was carrying. The city lights were bright, but they felt cold, artificial, and exhausting. 3 hours later, I was boarding a flight back to the province. When the plane landed at the regional airport the next morning, the air was completely different. It smelled of damp earth, pine needles, and wild grass.
It
smelled like home. As I walked out of the small terminal dragging my suitcases, I saw a tall, broad-shouldered man leaning against a clean white pickup truck. He was wearing a simple dark flannel shirt and jeans, his thick, dark hair slightly windswept. When he saw me, a brilliant, warm smile broke across his handsome face. He waved.
hard.
Willow, he called out, using my childhood name. I couldn't help but smile, a genuine, deep laugh bubbling up from my chest for the first time in years. I walked over and unceremoniously tossed my heavy suitcase into his arms. What? Did you also come back because no one wanted to marry you at 30?
I
Teased, raising an eyebrow. Owen Cole dodged my playful punch with practiced ease, laughing heartily as he lifted my luggage into the truck bed. Of course. If I didn't come back, my dad was ready to chase me all the way to the city with a broom. Owen and I had grown up together in Hollow Creek. In our tiny village school, we were the only two kids who constantly fought for the top academic ranks. We had competed fiercely, but we had also shared our dreams under the starlight, promising each other we would make something of ourselves. He had gone to a top agricultural university while I studied business.
But while
I got trapped in the toxic concrete jungle of the city, Owen had returned to Hollow Creek 4 years ago, determined to revitalize our struggling mountain
community,
he opened the passenger door for me, his eyes lingering on my face with a quiet, protective warmth. "You look tired, Willow," he said softly, his voice devoid of any pretense.
but
"You also look like you're finally free." "I am, Owen," I said, climbing into the cab. "I really am." As we drove up the winding mountain roads toward Hollow Creek, the towering, green peaks rose up to meet us. The worries of the city, of Marcus, of the betrayal, began to dissolve into the vast, ancient forest. I was finally home. A year passed in Hollow Creek like a beautiful, slow-winding river. Life in the mountains was hard work, but it was a clean, honest kind of labor. Under Owen's leadership, the village had formed an ecotourism cooperative.
we
Renovated the traditional timber houses into beautiful guest cabins, mapped out hiking trails through the misty valleys, and built a sustainable organic farming network. I took over the cooperative's marketing and business development. Working from my grandmother's porch with a cup of wild herbal tea, I used the skills that had built Joya Era to put Hollow Creek on the national map. We didn't need greedy corporate clients. We invited nature photographers, independent travel creators, and people who simply wanted to escape the suffocating grind of the city. Within months, Hollow Creek became a viral sensation, a sanctuary of peace and breathtaking beauty. But the best part of my year wasn't the success of our cooperative.
it was the get moment.
It was waking up to see my 80-year-old grandmother smiling as she tended her garden, healthy and vibrant. It was walking through the pine forests in the evening, my hand securely tucked into Owen's warm, calloused palm. Owen was nothing like Marcus. He didn't need to win against me to feel strong. When I came up with a brilliant business strategy, his eyes would shine with pride, and he would tell the whole village cooperative council, "That's our Willow. She's the smartest person I know." We were partners. We were equals. And slowly, the jagged wounds in my heart healed, replaced by a deep, quiet love that grew more resilient with every passing season. One crisp autumn morning, a delegation of top travel influencers was scheduled to arrive at the village entrance. I went down to the stone archway that marked the boundary of Hollow Creek to welcome them. The air was cool, the sweet scent of ripening persimmons hanging heavy in the
breeze.
A battered, dusty sedan crawled up the mountain road, its engine coughing loudly. As it pulled to a stop near the entrance, it looked completely out of place against the pristine green backdrop of our valley. The driver's side door creaked open, and a man stepped out. He was wearing a wrinkled, cheap gray suit that looked 2 sizes too big for him. His hair was messy, flecked with premature gray, and his face was pale, thin and lined with exhaustion. He looked like he hadn't slept a full night in months. I stopped in my tracks. It was Marcus Vale. I stood by the stone archway, my clipboard in hand, quietly watching him. A year ago, the sight of his betrayal would have sent a sharp, agonizing pang
through my chest.
But now, looking at his dusty, travel-worn figure, I felt absolutely nothing. No anger.
No resentment.
Just a profound, hollow indifference. Marcus looked up and saw me. For a second, he froze, his eyes widening. I was wearing a simple, beautifully embroidered linen shirt, jeans, and sturdy boots. My hair was tied back, my skin glowing from a year of clean mountain air and peaceful sleep. I looked radiant, healthy, and completely at peace. "Constance," he breathed, taking a hesitant step forward, his voice trembling. "My name is Willow here, Marcus," I said, my voice level. "What are you doing in Hollow Creek?" He let out a dry, bitter laugh, running a hand through his messy hair. He looked around at the beautiful, thriving village, the clean stone pathways, and the modern, rustic cabins nestled against the mountainside. "I didn't believe it when I saw the travel videos online," he muttered, his eyes tracing the clean, prosperous look of my home. "Everyone was talking about the mastermind behind the Hollow Creek Cooperative. I should have known it was you. You always had a way of building empires out of nothing." He took another step closer, his eyes pleading, desperate. "I made a mistake, Willow," he whispered, his voice cracking. A terrible, stupid mistake. From Olivia's occasional letters, I already knew what had happened in the city. After I left, without my execution and relationship building, Joya Era's top clients quickly realized that Marcus was nothing but an empty shell, a manager who could talk big but couldn't deliver. Within 3 months of my departure, several major accounts walked away. Olivia had used her majority power to completely strip Marcus of any operational control, eventually buying out his remaining 21% at a massive discount when his personal debts began to mount. As for Hannah, she had used her 15% to drain whatever liquid funds she could access before Olivia's lawyers caught her. To save himself from public ruin, Marcus had legally married her, but they had no money left. They lived in a cramped, drafty apartment on the outskirts of the city, their days consumed by bitter screaming matches, mutual resentment, and endless blame. Everyone called me Mr. Vale with respect, and that blinded me, Willow, Marcus said, tears finally welling in his eyes, his shoulders slumped as if under an immense weight. At some point, people in the company seemed closer to you. Clients came in and asked specifically for you. Even my own parents said, I only had today because of you. So, I went from fighting beside you to seeing you as someone I had to beat.
But
What could I beat you in? Only your feelings for me. That's why I deliberately dragged my feet on proposing. That's why I refused to come back to your hometown with you. Because I thought, at least in that one
thing I could win.
ridiculous, isn't it? He let out a pathetic, broken sob. I was competing with the person who loved me most. And now I have nothing. Hannah is gone. She took the last of my savings and ran off with some low-level manager.
The bank
Took the apartment. I have nothing left, Constance. He reached out, his hand shaking as he tried to grab the sleeve of my shirt. Please just come back with me. We can start over. I know we can. You still love me, right? I stepped back, easily evading his touch. If you're done, leave, I said, my voice quiet but firm. I don't hate you, Marcus, but I will not be friends with you either. I spent years charging toward your goals, carrying your weight, and letting you take the credit just to protect your fragile ego. Those years by your side were my pause. But my pause is over. Before Marcus could speak, a firm, heavy hand was placed gently on my shoulder. Owen walked up, his tall, powerful frame instantly casting a long shadow over Marcus. He didn't look at Marcus with anger. He looked at him with the quiet, effortless superiority of a man who actually knew how to cherish what he had. Is there a problem here, Willow? Owen asked, his deep voice carrying a natural
authority.
No, Owen. I smiled up at him, my heart warming instantly as I leaned into his
Side.
He was just leaving. Marcus looked at Owen, then at the way my hand naturally slipped into Owen's.
He
Saw the genuine, fierce protection in Owen's eyes and the quiet, radiant happiness in mine. At that moment, Marcus finally realized the magnitude of what he had thrown away. He hadn't just lost a company or a business partner. He had thrown away a diamond, thinking he was winning a handful of cheap glass. Marcus stayed silent for a long time, his face pale and entirely hollowed out, before slowly turning around. His back looked bent, defeated, and old. I thought time, stress, and regret had left their permanent marks on him after all. I watched his dusty car drive slowly down the winding mountain road, disappearing into the thick forest, until even the sound of a sputtering engine was swallowed by the wind. I turned to Owen, who was looking down at me with a soft, questioning smile. Are you okay, Willow? He asked gently. I'm perfect, I said, reaching up to gently smooth the collar of his flannel
shirt.
Let's go welcome our guests. We walked back into the village together, hand in hand, leaving the dust of the past far behind us. The mountains around us were vast, ancient, and beautiful, and our future was as bright and endless as the blue sky above Hollow Creek.